that feeling of May, like with Minty here, is such a good one. The energy rising, and you can be outside more. The days are really long, and the energy certainly ramps up in the garden. There's many more things we can be doing. We're passing the last frost date. It's a month to be outside as much as you can and doing all the things. Like the first thing we're going to do is take a lot of these covers off. If you've been using covers like here, a good thing you can do in probably early May, if you haven't already, is remove them, because especially fleece like this can get quite hot if the sun comes out, and that might be all right. But if that does happen, either remove the cover or be very sure that the watering is up to date, because if the plants are at all stressed, not having quite enough moisture, they will suffer under a fleece. But until now, that's certainly not been the case. It's been pretty cold here anyway, and the covers have really paid off. You know, this level of growth right here is just amazing. In this case, we're filming 26th of April, so just to give you an idea. But we've also got here a comparison of dig, no dig. So that bed is dug, compost added December. This one is no dig, compost added December. So everything's the same plantings put in the middle of March. And lo and behold, the dig bed is not doing that well. And it worries me, because I know that most people are digging still. No dig is actually gaining ground, which is great, because you can see how you get better drainage, better moisture retention, fewer weeds. Or if your compost has many weeds, just give it a light hoeing now as quick as you can on a dry day when they're very small, and you get stronger growth. So particularly in the middle, things like the spinach, the onions, multi-sown beetroot, lettuce that we'll start picking this week, turnips and radish also that we're just about to start picking. The turnips and radish are intercrops, but catch crops if you like, between the potatoes, and so they can come out within 2 weeks. Now they'll finish, and then the potatoes will fill all that space. I mistakenly planted lettuce actually. I lost my plan, and those lettuces will need to come out. So yeah, this is looking strong here. We've also got carrots coming up. They've been very difficult this spring. If you've had damage to a carrot sowing and that you're not seeing them within about 2.5 weeks, I would say that's maximum time to allow. Even 2 weeks they should be showing, then re-sow, and that's what I did here. So the first sowing disappeared, which was eaten by slugs because it's been so wet, and I re-sowed about 2 weeks ago, and you can see the seedlings there are pretty much where you'd expect at that time, and they're not looking so strong again on the dug bed. The other thing I've had here is a result of carbon tests amount in these two soils, and same amount of compost added for 11 years, 12 now, and 14% carbon there, 18% carbon in that soil, showing how no dig is so good for keeping carbon in the ground. This is where I store a lot of my vegetables. It's a brick lean-to, single wall, not insulated. By the house it stays cooler and quite damp in here. In the winter it's like a cellar actually, cellar temperature. In very cold weather it will go close to freezing, which can be tricky for potatoes. 2 years ago I brought a heater in here actually, because potatoes are the best thing you can store for May. May is the hungry gap, but this potato was harvested last July. It's 9 months old and it's feeling really firm. So storage is one aspect of getting over the hungry gap and having something to eat at a time of year when there's not a lot. But the ones I have in here, this so 26th April, there's parsnips, they're starting to go off a bit. Actually it tastes really nice still. Carrot sprouting, Jerusalem artichoke sprouting, there's some beetroot hiding under there, and the potatoes, and then we've got the new harvest, so salad leaves and spinach particularly, chard maybe if it's the winter, and then you've got radish and turnips coming through. So that all ties in with keeping up with new sowings. Fresh harvests in May are quite rare unless you were well organized like last autumn, or you've got some perennial vegetables like asparagus. So we've started picking these towards the end of April, and then through May every asparagus sphere is really precious, but it's a nice steady harvest. And then you have rhubarb as well, another perennial, possibly perennial kale. The other vegetables that you can be harvesting fresh in May are maybe ones you sowed last autumn, like spring onions and cabbage, and then ones you sowed this spring like turnips and radish, spinach maybe, lettuce. mostly leafy things, so there's nothing of great substance, so that's where the occasional stored potato is really valuable. And then towards the end of May, wow, it gets exciting because the first broad beans might be ready, but again from November sowing, and possibly the first beetroot as well from early multi-sown beetroot undercover. And that's where we'll go next, because more sowing undercover is something you can do in May to keep the larder replenished as we go through the season. There's a lot you can sow in May, but not everything. So you've got different categories of vegetables like cold tolerant, warm loving, and then a third one, which is vegetables that you could sow now and would come up, but they're going to flower towards the end of May through June, even July. And that includes things like kohlrabi and fennel and spinach and salad rocket, pak choy even. So those are vegetables I wouldn't sow in May or even June. Actually, better wait until August for them, maybe July. And then we've got the cold tolerant vegetables that we've been sowing a lot already, and that's things like beetroot, lettuce, salad onions, and you can carry on sowing them if you want, but you might well have enough already, so don't overdo sowings of them if you've got them growing already. The ones it's good to concentrate on in May are the warmth loving and frost tender vegetables, such as tomatoes, that, well, actually we've sown them already, but you could still just sow them for planting outside. So looking at sowing, it's more cucumbers now, because they're so warmth loving, they benefit from being sown later. Your first week of May is good to sow cucumbers for growing undercover, and the last week of May is good for sowing cucumbers to grow outside. So make sure you know which category you've got of those. This might sound a bit confusing, especially for beginners, just to be aware of the different type of vegetables, and do check out my calendar from that point of view, because it's got it all listed out day by day, week by week, and what you can sow right the way through actually until September. There's a long period of sowing still ahead of us. And in May, another vegetable to sow quite early in the month would be sweet corn, because that needs quite a long time to grow in temperate climates at least. This guidance is mostly for zones, say 5 to 8 temperate oceanic climate in particular is what we have here. And then winter squash. So that's a squash that's going to store all the way through the winter. Sow that early May, because that needs a long period of growing. Whereas summer squash, including courgettes, you can sow them any time in the month. And if you've got early variety sweet corn, you could also sow that late in the month. So that's your many options for sowing in May. For actually transplanting, it's slightly different, and particularly if you've got tomatoes ready now, you could plant them early in the month, and even we've put some in here in the greenhouse a week ago, so where they went in the middle of April. But you've got to be aware of the last frost date. And undercover early in the month is good generally for most of these warmth-loving vegetables to plant them, and to transplant outside, well, let's have a look at options in the small garden. It's a very exciting time when you finally plant out your tomatoes. You might have been raising them for a couple of months, and wow, it's that moment. Let's give you an idea of what I'll be doing here in May. Not quite yet, because it'll be mid-month really before it's warm enough here at least to plant tomatoes. I've chosen quite a shelter spot. That's definitely worth doing. It's warm here next to the brick wall, and I'm going to be interplanting them between lettuce. The lettuce I had thought or hoped would be bigger than this by now, but the weather has not. You can plan as much as you like, but I can't plan the weather, so I've lost a bit there. But basically there's still time for the lettuce to crop a bit in between the tomatoes as they get going. So the tomatoes might be at that kind of spacing, like right there actually. Some of the lettuce have been eaten by slugs. I could just put the tomato there. So it'd be a bit of an overlap of crop. And when planting something like tomatoes, you can put it in quite deep actually, you know, up to about there, bury the stem. These are cordon tomatoes. And other plantings you can make in May is all the squash plants, like this is courgette. Not ready yet because this is 26th April, but that's about right actually, and that could be a big plant by the middle of May, which is roughly what I want. And I'm showing you where I'm going to put this one to give you some ideas. So it's going to be right here where currently we have cabbage and cauliflower, because I know that these will finish within 3 weeks. The cauliflowers are making tiny little curves, they'll get bigger. And then as soon as they finish, I'll twist them out and pop in the courgette. So from about mid-month, courgettes and squashes of all kinds. Sweet corn you can transplant. There's one big one that I've not yet mentioned, keep it to the end because it's such a big feature of May, is the summer beans. So that's runner beans, French beans, all kinds of beans, borlotti beans, and I don't sow them before the 10th of May. I've found over many years that that's the best date. It covers the risks of it staying cold in May, which it certainly can here. Summer beans are a plant that can be checked by cold very easily, and you actually do better from sowing later because they just keep growing nice and steady. So 10th of May for sowing, preferably under cover. If you're sowing outside, 20th, and then we'll be planting them between the 20th and 31st of May, towards the end of the month. I've been saying this every month, but don't get bored of it. It's weeding, and if you keep on top of your weeding, as I keep emphasizing, little and often, look at the result here. I'm seeing very few weeds around this garden. We don't spend a lot of time weeding, but if we see the little weeds, we do it. So that's one part of this, and the other part is edging, which you check out an edging video we put up last autumn. Keeping the edges tidy also really helps, and that's all about keeping your garden tidy. If you've got few weeds and few old leaves and everything, you get fewer slugs. So weeds and pests quite often go together. And these two tools are the main ones I use for weeding. That trowel is like levering out perennial roots. I know that a lot of you might be smiling at this because you'll have bindweed in May, where maybe you weren't seeing it before. It only grows in the warmer months. Use a tool like that to go in quite vertically and remove what you can of the new growth. So one big difference in May compared to most of the preceding months is, well, hopefully anyway, it should be drier. And that means you can use a tool like a hoe. If you have a lot of small weeds, it's actually very quick to whiz through just at surface level, especially with no dig, because you've got soft compost on top, and the weeds just get cut by the hoe just below surface level. And then you don't need to take them away, you can just leave them, do it on a dry day, preferably in the morning, or before a dry evening, and you should find they just die in situ, and that saves so much time. The old saying of hoe your weeds before you see them is not literally true, but the smaller you catch them, the more you can achieve with a hoe. So it's a worthwhile tool to have in reserve. This bed I've been weeding actually has potatoes planted. You can see there and there's 3 rows of potatoes. It is still possible to plant, particularly second earlies and main crop, early in the month rather than later. Making compost, May is a month you can really go for it. There's so much to put in a heap. Like I've got 2 Daleks here, and sometimes you could use one to turn into the other one. For example, this one's quite empty at the moment, we're just starting it. But this, yeah, I'm trialing not turning that one into there, but instead using the compost aerator tool, which is like this corkscrew that you can get online anywhere. You just put in compost aerator tool, or just compost aerator. So you screw it down and then you can lift it up. In theory you can lift it up. It's quite hard work actually, that lifting bit. And that gives you a profile of what's going on in your heap. And I would say that's looking a little bit wet. It's okay. There's sometimes worms in there. They quite like that wet condition. This is compost that has been brewing, added to since Christmas. So it's about 4 months, and we've got to the point where I'm not adding any more now, and that's what it looks like. But this tool is very good for both bringing up the bottom to the top and also mixing what's in there, the greens and the browns. So just keep adding lots of weeds, like all the weeds you've got you can put, including roots of bindweed and everything like that. I mean, do check out some of my older videos on that. And then kitchen waste, so everything goes in, lemons, onion skins, the whole blooming lot. Paper, bits of cardboard is all good. And here we have some more weeds, and weeds with a bit of soil is good because that is green and brown, so you want roughly 1/4 brown by volume, 3/4 green. That's a very approximate figure. And I'm also trialing a hot bin here. I'm struggling a bit at the moment. I won't say anything about it at this point, but we'll have a look at it later. During May we finally get some height in the garden, and it needs a bit of management. Like these broad beans that were sown late October, they're going to be up to 1.5 meters even by the middle of May. One thing we'll do is pinch out the tops, because that also is where blackfly can land, and that stops them growing too high and makes them concentrate on growing pods. And then as they develop pods in particular, that's quite a lot of weight on the stem and they can easily fall over. So what we do here is just use post and string, and we've been guiding the plants inside the string during the growing process. And I reckon usually with this variety, Aqueducti Claudia, when they get about this high, will start pinching out the top. So when you see a nice stem full of flowers is a good time. And with peas it's quite similar, but check the small print of your catalogue, see what you sowed and how high it's supposed to be, and support them accordingly if you haven't already. We're using pea sticks mostly for peas that are supposed to grow 1 to 1.2 metre high, 3 to 4 feet. You might have taller peas you could put in fence posts and netting, and that will sort themselves out. Or if you use post and string, you might need to guide them as well. So there's a bit more height management now than there has been in the winter, which is a lovely thing to do. A beautiful thing to do in May is plant flowers around the garden, and that's frost tender flowers like these. Dwarf French marigold is actually my favourite because they stay small, don't really get in the way too much, but they maintain flowering all summer, even if you don't deadhead them actually. And they don't set seed, in our climate at least. They don't make weed plants, if you like. Calendulas, for example, pot marigold, you'll end up with them everywhere if you just let them go to seed. And so I keep them just to one little place in the garden, but these I pop everywhere and they look great, and they do secrete something called limonene actually, which deters aphids. Just a little bit of extra help. I put them in the polytunnel under the tomatoes, so you can plant them at that stage. They're really strong. It helps that that was home safe seed. I think that's made them stronger, and I'm dibbing little holes here, you know, planting them quite close actually, because that will really make a bit of a show. And then if you've got bigger ones already and you're not ready to plant them out, like there's going to be a bit of frost, you could pot these on. Otherwise they can definitely go in the ground at this sort of size. And one thing to watch out for is slugs, as ever, and that's been certainly a feature of this spring. I hope that you haven't suffered too much, and going forwards it should dry up and be better weather for easier growing. Keep on top of the slugs and pests for sure. So with everything I've been showing you in this video, you may get the feeling it's quite a busy month. I find that around the middle of May the energy really ramps up, and suddenly we are much busier than we've been in the winter, even though we thought we were being quite busy in April. So hang in there and be out as much as you can in your plot, and then you'll be ready for June.